Welcome. Thank you very much, Hector. I'm Keith Piggott, the CEO of Gold Group, and you've seen our video up on the screen earlier on. I'm an Anglo-Australian, half English, half Australian, I guess. I've lived all over the world, and I currently lived in Mexico for the last 15 years. I worked and made a lot of money in the mining industry in Australia. The reason I'm in Mexico is because I believe that Mexico is one of the best jurisdictions in the world to mine. I've lived there. I've seen the difference between the situation in Mexico. Up until 1992, Mexico had virtually no foreign participation in this mining industry because it was a very nationalised country. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. They just didn't have enough worldwide exploration potential. So I saw Mexico in the mid-90s as being the new Australia for mining. In other words, it's different deposits, but it has the sort of potential that I saw in Australia 20 or 30 years before. So I went to Mexico, and I personally started 2 mines up in Mexico in the state of Sonora. In 2006, I formed a company called Gold Group because I wanted access to the Canadian markets. As it's been pointed out to you, Canadian markets are the conduit for worldwide money to go into other countries in the world. They're the conduit. They're not actually, most of the people, in fact, in our company in Mexico, I think we have 1 Canadian working for us. We have a small office in Vancouver, in the entrepreneurial capital, in my opinion, of the mining world in today's markets. And the Toronto Stock Exchange is the conduit where the money is taken from. Our money, our investors are Mexicans, Americans, Canadians, British, Swiss, Germans, French, people from South America. So the money comes into Mexico. The money and most of the money that's being spent into Mexico in this great mining jurisdiction, where there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, most of this money actually stays in Mexico. It's put into Mexico. People, I think it's not well understood in many quarters exactly how people make their money in this industry. I can see how we make a mine in this industry, but a lot of people don't really understand how we make the money in the industry. So what we do is we funnel the money from the world's mining investors through the Toronto Exchange, which happens to be a Canadian exchange, and it's very well run, very well done, and we funnel that into the countries that we like to work in. And I like to work in Mexico because I think it's a great jurisdiction. And having said that, I'm from Australia, one of the world's top mining jurisdictions. The money is funneled into Mexico, into exploration initially, and then into development. The way the investors make the majority of their money out of this business is they like to see their assets grow. We can't take a mine from Mexico and put it in Canada. We can't take a mine and put it in the United States. It's in Mexico. That's where the jurisdiction is and where the assets are. So we grow those assets in Mexico, and our investors make their money predominantly out of selling their shares because the value of their assets increases, as in any business. So the great benefit for Mexico, very great benefit for Mexico, is that the majority of the money that comes out of the ground in Mexico, which isn't worth anything until it comes out of the ground, an ounce of gold in the ground isn't worth anything until you take it out. The question is, what do you do with it? So the majority of that money actually benefits the people of Mexico. And we think that's great business for our investors because their assets are growing tremendously. We think that's great business for the governments of Mexico because they get benefits from the taxation. And we think it's great business from the local communities of Mexico. So Gold Group is focused on those, and we have 3 fantastic opportunities. We have a producing mine in northern Mexico. We have a mine coming into production, Caballo Blanco. It's well in the news at the moment. It's a very nice operation in southeastern Mexico in the state of Veracruz, and we have 100% of both of those. And we will be developing a mine in the state of Sinaloa, in a very friendly mining jurisdiction in Sinaloa, called San Jose de Gracia high-grade vein mine. So, in a nutshell, I'm going to introduce these eminent people on the panel here, especially Eduardo Luna, who's been a friend of mine for a number of years, and who was involved with Lewis Mint, and who I hold in high regard. He was a director of Gold Corp, and Silver Wheaton is the director of Silver Wheaton. He's got tremendous experience in the mining industry, as is our other Joe Phillips as well, in the mining industry in Mexico. I think these gentlemen will tell you a little bit about what they do. We're here basically to tell you a little bit about what we've done, but more importantly to answer any questions that you might have. about the real world of Mexico. Not the political world of Mexico, not the drug world of Mexico, but how Mexico actually works and what the mining industry does for Mexico and what investors can benefit, how investors can benefit from Mexico, and also how the people can benefit from what we do. And there's just one little thing I'd like to touch on. Jorge Castellano earlier on told you that the mining industry, in terms of its exports, is a relatively small percentage of the exports of Mexico. And I don't disagree with that, that's true. Very true. However, the mining industry has one great advantage for Mexico that all of the other industries that he's mentioned, manufacturing, tourism, etc., don't have. And mining decentralizes the economy. Mining right throughout the world's history has decentralized the economy. Mining built San Francisco. Mining built Reno, Nevada. Mining built many of the large cities of the world that you see today are now large cities. They weren't there before. Mining built San Luis Potosí. Mining built Zacatecas. Mining built a lot of these towns. A lot of these towns have grown and developed other industries, Vanuatu. They've developed other industries, car industries, whatever they have now, because mining allowed the economies to decentralize. And that's exactly what's happening in Mexico now today. You will see that the mines are being built in parts of Mexico where there's no employment. So the underprivileged people of Mexico, many of them don't live in the cities. Many of them live in the campo, in the outlying communities of Mexico. They don't have power. They don't have water. They have very little. But what the mining industry does is it brings in infrastructure into outlying areas. And that's one fantastic advantage for Mexico, and it's one fantastic advantage for the investors who want to invest in Mexico. Because you're bringing something to people who are underprivileged. You're bringing the industrial world, you're bringing the new world, you're bringing the advances of the world to these people who didn't have it before. And I know friends of mine who run an exploration company called Almaden, very smart company. Friends of mine have actually had pictures taken because the people in the areas have never had a job before. They've never had a job. They're in outlying areas of Mexico. So they're very happy to see the regional people, I'm not talking about the state governments, the regional people in these small communities are very happy to see the mining companies come into their communities. So I think what you see in Mexico is a really great place to go and do business, a really great place, a very prospective mining country, and a place where, from an environmental point of view and from a sociological point of view, we as investors and we as people from outside, although I've lived there for 15 years, I consider myself literally Mexican. But we as outside can actually benefit those people as well as making a profit for ourselves. And on that note, I'm going to introduce the panel to you, and I think we'll lead off with Eduardo Luna. And he can say a little bit about himself. And then after this, what we'll do is we'll have questions and answers. You can ask us anything you like about our perception of the drug situation, our perception of how the economy is working, our perception as people who work there, actual business people who work and dig minerals out of the ground, exactly what our perception of this is. Eduardo.